What's up, guys? This is the House from Gun Gamers.
I'm Cory.
And I'm Lutz.
And today we have a discussion that should be a lot of fun, and that is about post-apocalyptic airsoft guns. And, going for that post-apocalyptic aesthetic for your airsoft guns so that you can look really, really cool at Omega events or Revelations or whatever. We're pretty much talking about Omega events today because, we're all planning on going to Desolation 2. And I'm planning on going to Revenant as well. So we've got a lot of stuff coming up that we're very excited about. So let's start off by giving the viewer an idea of our taste for what we like in post-apocalyptic media and what kind of aesthetic we like. So my personal favorite post-apocalyptic aesthetic is probably Fallout New Vegas. That's a really good one. Or another good one is like The Road or Children of Men.
Oh, I'm sad now. God, those movies are draining.
Yeah. Yeah, so those are, Children of Men I would call post-apocalyptic, right? Yeah, okay. Just making sure I wasn't alone. But
yes.
So those are my personal favorite, post-apocalyptic aesthetics for the way the guns looked, the way that, things were kind of, the gear looked, the way the people looked, the costumes, all that stuff. So...
my favorite aesthetic is not necessarily focused on media, but more focused on the elements. And so for me, it would be weathering. Just having a gun look weathered.
God, you're such a conservationist.
Yeah, I know. Just looking oxidized and kind of beat up and looked like it's been through something. How about you?
Mine's kind of the same as Cory's. I'll put a little more specificity. That's a word.
Yes,
to
it.
It's
a good word.
Yeah. Right, English major?
Yeah, okay. Specificity.
Cool, I'm good at words. I like to have a little bit of like the surface rust to it. I want it to look kind of like, the whole idea is, there's like a major war or something, and I found this gun and it's better than this shit heap I had sitting in my garage, but, by this much. So it's a little more tactical looking, but still well worn because you picked it up off the ground.
Yeah.
So
well, and I come at it from a little bit of a different perspective, and maybe this is and this is I think is why so many people are drawn to post-apocalyptic roleplay because you can do it your own way. But the way I look at it is, firearms are a valuable resource in the post-apocalypse. Like, let's say it's the Survive Omega Events Apocalypse where tons of people want to kill each other. Resources are super rare because there was like a 50-year war before the apocalypse that a comet hit and destroyed a whole bunch of infrastructure. So firearms and any resources, but especially ammunition and especially guns themselves and their parts, are a very finite, very limited, very valuable resource. So my logic, and this is why I kind of differ from the aesthetic of this gun is super weathered, this gun's super beat up. I'm kind of like, okay, but that's your only gun. And it might be the only gun you realistically have been able to get in the last 5 or 6 years. You are going to baby that thing if possible.
I'm going to counter you here, though. A lot of the concept, again, this is where it's kind of everyone's interpretation of it, right? But when I think post-apocalyptic, I think housewives or a random guy that worked an office job who's never touched a gun in his life, now he needs it.
Yeah.
He has no fucking clue what he's doing. He has no gun oil. He picked it up off some dead guy 5 years ago, and he has no fucking clue what he's doing.
Yeah.
And so he's like, it works. He's not going to take this rusted up one and make it look brand new.
No.
Oil might be finite resources.
But my logic was that, the gun's not going to look like he didn't care about it and threw it in the mud and dragged it around. So my gun is like, if you actually look at it like in person, you probably can see it as well in video. This gun is very well used. And it's very, like, in its own way weathered. Like, a lot of the rivets have no more finish. There are actually some spots where, rust started. This back here, like the receiver where the underfolder actuates, is totally worn. Wherever the selector lever is totally used. But what you can see is that, hey, no one went out of their way to beat this gun up, and it looks like something that has been somewhat cared for at least.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the aesthetic I like, is this thing was babied because it is an only gun. But you guys, I think, and I think that's equally as valid as, I don't really know how guns work, but all of a sudden I need one, and I have no idea how to do any of this, so this is what I have, and I do this because I think this is how guns work, which I think an interesting, and I made this point before we started filming, if you're looking for references for post-apocalyptic guns, I'm actually going to deviate from the fictional media, and I'm going to say, look at the Middle East. A lot of the guns in the Middle East that are being used by Mujahideen, Taliban, ISIS even, and I know, don't Google, ISIS guns. Maybe the NSA will
Hashtag use ISIS as inspiration.
Yeah. Maybe search Khyber Pass or something.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that a lot of those guns are, built from Soviet-era components.
Yep.
They are Soviet-era guns. Or they're older than the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. And maybe they're, Chinese guns that are then built with different components. And a lot of those are decorated by people who don't necessarily know how they work. A lot of those are also, maintained by people who do have a fundamental respect for how they work. And a lot of those are built very creatively, but they're still functional firearms.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's something that I think is important, is regardless of what aesthetic you go for, I think it should always look like a functional firearm.
Yes.
One thing that I wanted to throw in there, the aesthetic of your gun and what you're wearing and who you're playing at an event might want to match up a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Is something that that I thought of when you were talking about, what your gun looks like. If you're going as someone who used to be a soldier, maybe your gun should look like it's been taken care of.
And maybe it should look like a soldier's
Maybe it
gun.
should have a paint job. Maybe there should be more military attachments. But let's say you are just some random school teacher and figured out that, this is a gun. It goes bang. I found it in a city parking lot. Here it goes.
Yeah, it was
underneath
sitting
a car or something.
By a
Yeah.
dead body.
That's what that looks like.
Yeah. Or, then you get into, these are, AEGs.
Yeah.
But then you get into the viability of, well, hey, I'm a guy who was a farmer before all this went down. Maybe I've got a shotgun.
Or a hunting rifle.
Or a hunting rifle.
This is a perfect survival games like Omega is probably the perfect time to break out that spring sniper rifle that you've been wanting.
Or your single action army, because there's no other time where it's really viable.
Which that honestly, a lot of grandpas hand down single action armies down to their grandchildren.
Yeah, or classic looking 1911s.
Or lever
Beautiful
action.
lever action.
Yeah. Well, and then maybe you're going for the Fallout New Vegas vibe, and it's more of a Western theme, and maybe you want a lever action and a single action army because that makes sense for the character you're role playing.
Yep.
If you go to my father-in-law's house, I'm sure I'll find a shotgun, a lever action, and several other.
Yeah. I
probably
mean,
legal things.
heck, if I opened up my gun cabinet, I would have New York legal, but I would have an AK and I would have 2 or 3 vintage rifles and then my shotgun. So that's kind of what you're working with, is what do normal people have?
Yeah.
And I know that, a lot of people watching this video are going to be like, well, I have an AR-15 at home and I have a plate carrier and all this stuff. And I'm like, okay, you are not normal people.
Yeah.
The vast majority of the world does not have a raced out AR-15 with 20 PMags and a JPC. Well, and I that's why I like one of the rules that Omega Events has made where, okay, they used to have it where you couldn't wear tactical gear. And I'm like, all right, cool. You wear tactical gear, but NPCs might treat you like garbage because they assume you have hostile intent.
Dude, I'm super on board for that kind of thing. I'm very excited.
Nice JPC. High speed. Get the hell out of here. We don't want your...
Get out of my shop, you damn nerd.
Coyote Brown, what are you, a Marine? Get the fuck out.
So that's kind of one thing to consider. But then another thing to consider, I think this right here is a good example of doing the ultra weather, doing the classic Mad Max style post-apocalyptic look. But I like this because it doesn't look unrealistic.
It looks like surface rust.
Well, and it looks like a gun
Still usable.
that actually would work with all this stuff on it.
And the parts don't match either. Which is another thing. If you, let's say this would be the gun of a mechanic from Mad Max, which it totally looks like now that I look at it. Because this part doesn't match and it still has finish. this part doesn't match and it still has finish. The selector switch looks like it was added on at a later time or was just had a different finish. The magazine's plastic, which kind of makes sense because plastic mags are the ones that are going to last through rust.
With steel reinforced.
It's steel reinforced, yeah. And there's grip tape on the grip. Makes sense.
Because maybe you would want grip tape on your grip.
Yeah. And like Eric brought up before the video, maybe you want something wrapping around your rail system because you got a couple screws loose.
Yeah.
Not internally in your brain, but maybe on the gun itself.
Or both.
Well, and that's something that I think is important to keep in mind when you're customizing your post-apocalyptic gun. Like, and this is a pet peeve of mine. I hate it when I see duct tape on barrels.
Oh, yeah.
Like, what is that duct tape doing on your barrel? Number one, it would burn off if you let off more than like 5 or 6 rounds in a row, probably. And number two, what? Do you have a hole in your barrel and that duct tape is going to contain the pressure of a 7.62 round? Okay.
100-mile-per-hour tape's pretty good stuff.
It's not that good. No tape is that good. Maybe flex tape. I don't know. Get on that, Phil Smith.
Flex seal.
But,
a lot of damage.
But then you get into like, this, hey, I've got some tape on the base of my magazine because maybe, the part that retains the magazine base plate broke and I need to hold that base plate on there because this magazine is a rare resource and I'm going to run this thing into the ground until it cracks in half and I want to keep it together so I tape the base plate on. That's a totally valid explanation. Or like Cory said, hey, there's screws missing in this rail system, or maybe there's no screws, or maybe it's messed up somehow, tape. And then, the burlap on the stock. I actually, for a similar purpose, have paracord on my stock.
More comfortable to put your face on.
Yeah, that's
For
more
sure.
comfortable to
Yeah.
put your face on. That's kind of a creature comfort that you believe someone might spend a relatively little amount of resources on, and especially with the paracord on the stock, because technically that paracord isn't consumed in that purpose. It really neither is the burlap.
Yeah.
You could use those.
I kind of want to put Russian tourniquet in here. That'd be kind of cool.
Ooh.
Yeah,
You could do
because
a
you
lot
could.
of things with that.
Yeah, you can use that
The
tourniquet.
options are endless. Becca from Gun Gamers made she crocheted me a gun sleeve like a stock sock
Stock
Yeah.
sock.
to keep my little face warm in the event that I don't have
adorable.
a beard. Yeah. Oh, this stock wobble is great. That's an aesthetic. Another thing, maybe mix up your magazines.
Yep.
Don't use all the same magazines.
Yep.
Because magazines are going to be another resource in the apocalypse that people would be scrounging for. So it might be good. I mean, if you're an AK guy, have some plum mags, have some tan orange Bakelite,
Circle 10 looking mags.
Yeah, these Bulgarian mags, which I'm pretty sure they're Bulgarian.
Or you could just tape 2 of the same mag together and just use that.
Yeah.
It's another priority if you're actually considering, hey, I'm going to be walking around maybe for miles as the lone wanderer. Well, this isn't Fallout. You don't have a carrying capacity of 350 pounds. You are trying to keep everything light. So that's kind of why I like, and this is what I did for Desolation, is I just taped these 2 magazines together because I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm only going to have these 2 magazines. Number one, because of the rules at Desolation. You're only supposed to have up to 300 rounds total of capacity. And number two, because that means all the ammo I could possibly have is on this gun. And it's very practical then, because you can just grab that gun and fight back immediately, not have to worry about putting on a kit or having anything on your body. You just have this gun ready to go at all times. So that's another consideration. And then, a sling, I think, is very important if you're trying to go for a realistic post-apocalyptic look, because if you can get some kind of sling or some kind of carrying strap for when you're rucking, you're going to do it. No one in the post-apocalypse is going to be like, oh, I don't want a carrying strap on my gun. It's like, no, if you're carrying that thing everywhere, you want something to carry it.
Especially the average person. Like, the average person's going to be like, man, this sucks to carry. Give me something to throw this on.
Yeah.
They're going to find something to tie around their gun so they can tie it around their body.
And even if you have like a handgun and you don't have a proper holster, you can make like a duct tape holster or a Coke bottle that you
I
cut
like
in
the
half.
Coke bottle one, and I'm
Coke bottle
gonna.
Kydex.
Yeah, I'm gonna test that. Matt sent that to me the other day.
Yeah.
It's amazing. He took some guy took a Coke bottle, heated it up, and then put it in his Kydex press with his pistol and made a Coke bottle holster. It was amazing.
So I think what we're kind of getting at in general, though, is like it should make sense that the gun looks like this in some way, and it should have some kind of thought behind it, not only for, in a post-apocalypse, what would be realistic, but also, hey, what are the game rules?
I feel like this also starts going heavily into the LARP category.
Oh, yeah, no.
Of
absolutely.
Flesh out your character.
Yes.
So, like, who you are for that. It's like, before the war, were you, like, an office worker? Were you in the military? What were you? Because then that's going to kind of lead you into what you want to make.
Yeah, like the so I had this gun, and the character I was playing was a nihilistic raider.
Yeah.
Who, it was a really fun character.
I mean,
but
that's usually what they use.
Yeah, well, AKs, number one, would be very popular for something like that, probably, because they're very easy to keep running, and this is the gun I had that I thought looked the most like that character in my head. And then, the paracord was just a little bit of paracord used. I didn't waste the resource. But at the same time, this character who's killing people and taking their stuff will have resources.
Yeah.
So, he's not afraid to take a new gun if maybe his is broken or beyond repair, so it makes a little more sense that his gun looks a little bit newer, but it still has some considerations made. For example, I've got the grip tape up here on the handguard because maybe this handguard was broken. What I imagined in my head was A, this handguard was broken, and B, he wanted something to absorb a little bit more of the heat when he's shooting because he might be doing a lot of shooting, murdering people to take their stuff. Which is also why he would want some cushion on this stock, because it's an underfolder. If you ever shot a real underfolder, those stocks are garbage. So that's kind of, a consideration there. But it still has the sights. He would maintain the sights. My character would keep the gun relatively clean, well used, but relatively, useful. And then, of course, being able to grab and go at a minute's notice with the gun immediately ready and having a lot of ammo on it immediately makes a lot of sense for a character who maybe is going to be sitting down or conducting patrols and wants to have that ammo on tap immediately, all without wearing any kind of tactical gear that betrays his intent so that he can kind of,
act
a little normal, blend in a little bit.
And then be the asshole.
But then immediately be the asshole. I did that a little bit, and it was fun.
So I got a question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I know we put the M4 out here.
Yes.
But that was, because we kind of talked about this beforehand. But why do you see so many post-apocalyptic guns, especially when we're playing in the U.S., that are like all AKs or like G3s or FALs? It's all 7.62, and it's all stuff that I don't see people necessarily having as often as like an AR.
Yeah,
and I mean ARs everywhere.
We did just throw some shade at not everyone has a raced out AR, but the AR-15 is and has been for some time the best-selling rifle in America.
Right.
So the AR-15 would be very common.
I never see them when people do post-apocalyptic things.
I think it's because of the internet myth of the AR-15 being so unreliable.
Yeah.
And because you see so many AKs and so many classic weapons in post-apocalyptic media. Mm-hmm. And the AR-15 looks a little more futuristic to a lot of people. So they're like, you're not going to have one of those in the apocalypse. It's like, why not?
If the military has it, and there's going to be a lot of them.
All the civilians have them.
And the ammo is incredibly common. The magazines are incredibly common. The parts are incredibly common.
Good luck finding 5.45 in the apocalypse.
Yeah, 7.62 by 39, maybe 5.45. Not since the 7 and 6 ban.
This is a 5.56 AK-74U.
Yeah. So, and that's the thing, though. There are AKs chambered in 5.56.
Yeah, there are.
Yeah, and actually those magazines are modeled after 5.56 mags.
Yeah.
But ARs will definitely be present in the apocalypse. So if you're like, I don't think my AR looks post-apocalyptic enough, I mean, that's what guns are going to look like. Maybe if you want, give it a weathered paint job, like say someone painted it or something, have some mismatched parts, like this thing does not match. I've got all kinds of stuff that I could put on here that doesn't match. But while we're talking about putting stuff on your gun, a very important consideration that I really, really like from Omega's rule set that we're going to borrow for our discussion is Omega actually doesn't allow you to have any battery-powered attachments on your gun.
Now, they said, correct me if I'm wrong, but you can use them, but you can't actually have batteries in them.
Oh, yeah. You
so
can
if you have like a T1, you can run it with no battery as a jackass.
Oh, yeah. You can technically have it on there, but with no battery.
Reticle.
Yeah. Which then just makes it useless, and you might as well just ditch the weight and use your irons.
Yeah.
But I actually really like that.
Yeah.
Because when you're considering the content, and this is something we're going to mention, is the context of the apocalypse. And the apocalypse in the Omega universe came through a meteor that scattered toxic cloud everywhere on the heels of like a major war between superpowers, and all kinds of crazy stuff happened, and there were resource wars, and resources were very limited even before the meteor fell, and that's why the world went to shit. So the context of the apocalypse matters a lot. So if you're a significant period of time after the apocalypse, or if the world was shitty before the apocalypse, it makes a lot of sense that you're not going to have extra batteries laying around.
Yeah. And if you are, you're not going to use them in optics.
No. Because
I'd rather my flashlight work so I can see around my camp at night than, oh, sweet, I can power this, I don't know, some other dumbass site.
Yeah, when I have irons on my
sights
gun.
Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, and that's something to consider is that, and you're also not going to have time to, like, zero optics.
No.
So if you
Are you
find...
going to burn ammo to zero it?
Yeah. Ammo is a valuable resource.
You're going to pray that it shoots when you pull the trigger.
That's about it.
Yeah. And at Omega, the combat was relatively rare, but it did happen. But for the average player, that is, I was a raider, so it was totally different. But yeah, so raiders are allowed to be a little more militarized, which makes sense because they're killing people, taking their stuff. But if you're an average civilian in the apocalypse, you are probably not using your gun much, if at all, and you probably are like battery-powered attachments are probably a secondary consideration. Like you said, you want batteries to power your flashlight. You want batteries to, power your stove or anything like that. Maybe you want to rig them up to create an ignition source for any number of things, or a radio.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whether you should even carry a sidearm with this type of event.
Yeah, and that's a good consideration.
Or whether you want to carry a pistol over a rifle.
You go. So
one of the things you might want to consider is, depending on your character for these type of roles in games, in one of the Omega games or any type of LARP survival post-apocalypse game, is do you want to carry a rifle? Is an assault rifle for you, or is something like a sidearm better for you? I know Eric had experiences with his sidearm at Desolation, and honestly, for a long time, I was like, oh, I'll just use my USP for this event. It's reliable, it'll work a lot, but I mean, I just love AKs too much and need an excuse to use them, so I'm going to use an AK.
But it also depends on what your character is.
Yeah,
because like we said, match your gun to your character.
Yeah.
Maybe you have a shotgun, maybe you have a bolt-action rifle, or maybe you just have a handgun. Maybe your character who's a civilian in the apocalypse doesn't have much use for a rifle, or hasn't been able to find one, or has no ammo for one, so doesn't bother carrying it.
Yeah.
So maybe he just has a handgun, or he or she, whoever. But that's a good point. Is a handgun for you? Or if you have a rifle, should you also have a handgun? Yeah. Would it make sense that your character even bothers carrying a handgun? Would your character still have a handgun? Would they have lost it? Or would they have taken a handgun from someone? Like, again, I used my single action army, the smoke wagon, in conjunction with this AK for my raider character, because, yeah, this douchebag raider character is totally going to see a shiny single action army and take it and put it on his belt and be like, yeah, I'm a cowboy, wee-haw!
But something like the Elite Force Hater would be super cool for an event like this, and actually pretty useful, because the discs are super easy to reload. You can hand load those, and when actual BBs are sparse, that's really nice to load. Plus CO2.
And you're not allowed mechanical speed loaders.
Yeah, well, I think my thumbs are pretty good. So use one of those, and they kind of have a slight futuristic look, but not something too far-fetched that you'd see in the near future. And I know you're looking at them. Also, shout out to Wasteland Armory for doing some sweet
Yeah, Wasteland Armory
builds.
does some really cool stuff.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of people who post a lot of really cool stuff in the Omega Events General Interest group. I will put that in the description below, a link to that. There's a lot of really cool stuff in there, and a lot of people discussing their characters, the gameplay of Omega Events. I know, and we've been focusing on Omega. I know Balahack also does Revelations. Revelations is a really cool event. I wasn't able to make it to this most recent one. I'm hoping to make it to one of those at some point, but
that would be great.
Just giving a shout out to some of the good post-apocalyptic events. Yeah. Another thing that I see at some post-apocalyptic games is like homemade guns. And this is where I kind of circle back to my previous rant of, okay, you made a homemade gun, or you have a more futuristic looking gun. It should still look like a functional firearm.
Yep.
This is where I have an issue with like a lot of the pipe rifles and pipe weapons in Fallout 4. Some of them looked pretty decent. Some of them looked like, oh yeah, I could believe that, that would be a useful gun. Yeah. And then some of them just looked like, what the hell is this? Why? Who made this? No.
Like the pipe pistols in Fallout 4. I don't know. But then you look at the SMGs that had... they basically looked like the British submachine gun from World War II.
Like they looked like, hey, we actually realistically put together a series of tubes. Whereas the pipe pistol was like, there's no way.
There's somehow a magazine?
Yeah, or the pipe revolver, where it's like you somehow machined out a cylinder. Like what? Yeah. Like make any improvised weapons. Yes, they should look improvised, but they should also look like they were improvised by someone who knew what they were doing, and it looks believable that thing's not going to explode in your face after one round. Look at like the slam fire shotguns people can make.
Yeah.
But you were going to say something.
What I would suggest is maybe doing improvised parts rather than an improvised gun. Like, I kind of want to build an improvised vertical grip for that. That'd be kind of cool. But maybe an improvised stock for that old AK that you have laying around that has no stock because you broke it when you were 14 or something. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I like that too. I'm with Eric with the improvised guns. They usually look like something that'll just explode on you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know it's all about the immersions, and that just kind of kills it. Really, for me, it just comes down to diversity. I hate seeing the same gun over and over. Especially just because...
Like, my AK, I will admit, looks very, very generic.
Everyone's going to personalize their thing
but it
to
looks
what
like
works for their needs. So if you're a guy that has a house, has shelter still, you may not have what the guy who's been nomadic, living under a tarp every day would have. And so I just like seeing a wide range of stuff as opposed to seeing, oh look, 15 guys showed up with ARs and like 2 guys put some grip tape on them. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's just gets boring.
Agreed.
But.
Yeah. So I think, definitely customize your character and come up with a full backstory for your character that you're playing.
Be creative.
Have some fun with it. That's
the point,
that's
right?
what this is for. Is really have some fun with it.
No, this is serious.
This
This is for serious.
I'm here for my KD ratio.
KD ratio.
In the post-apocalypse.
I'll post my KD ratio from every game. It's real negative.
So bad.
It's real bad.
But I think that just about covers it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. Hopefully maybe we gave you some ideas or some things to consider. And let us know your thoughts down in the comments below and join the Omega Events General Interest Group. And so anyway, this has been eHouse.
I'm Matt Lutz.
And I'm Cory.
And we will catch you guys in the next video. Peace. Thank you for watching this video from Gun Gamers. We hope you enjoyed watching it as much as we enjoyed making it. Check the description below if you'd like to buy a t-shirt or a patch, and use the coupon code JUDY10 for 10% off of your next order at Amped Airsoft. Thank you again for watching, and praise Judy.